Okay, here we go. It's Monday, January 6th. Happy Black Monday. We've got a jam-packed show. We run through everything that happened yesterday in the NFL. We recap all the NBA action from yesterday. We run through NHL games as well. And we talk Dodgers news at the end. This is the Early Game Podcast. Listen to the show in the mornings, on your commute, whenever and wherever, so you can be a part of the sports conversation. Let's go! 25 games today between the NFL, NHL, and NBA to cover. We'll start off even before yesterday. Let's start off Saturday in the NFL, because two games happened then, and that kind of set the stage for what happened yesterday in football. So the Browns played at the Ravens. The Ravens won 35-10. So this clinched the AFC North for the Ravens. And they have the 3 seed in the AFC. And that locked in the top 4 seeds in the AFC. Chiefs being the 1, the Bills being the 2, Ravens being the 3, and the Texans being 4. They won the AFC South. And so what was to be determined on Sunday in the AFC was the last playoff spot, as well as some seeding ramifications. And so the Steelers and the Chargers had already clinched. The question was, what seed were the Chargers and the Steelers going to get? And then the Bengals, the Dolphins, and the Broncos were competing for the 7th playoff spot in the AFC. So at that point, the Steelers had already lost out on winning the AFC North. They needed a win. The Steelers needed a win. They needed the Ravens' loss. They would have that could have set the stage for them to win the AFC North. Either way, the Bengals won this one 19-17. Extremely disappointing outcome for the Steelers team, who, by the way, go back to the tape. I already called pretenders 2 weeks ago. I stick by that. Russell Wilson obviously did not look great. So they couldn't win the AFC North. Didn't matter even before this game started. But they were able to get as high as the 5 seed depending on what happened Sunday with the Chargers. Bengals did their job. They needed to win Saturday in order for them to have a shot. They did. Now their fate was not in their hands anymore. So after the Bengals had gotten off to this horrible start to this football season, they clawed their way back. A lot went their way these last 2 weeks. And so going into Sunday of Week 18, they gave themselves at least a fighting chance to sneak in. And now, let me just say, as somebody who follows the Bills very closely, I did not want to play Joe Burrow and the Bengals. I think Joe Burrow is playing at such a high level, despite only scoring 19 Saturday. I think he's playing at a high level. I think he would have caused the Bills' defense, specifically their secondary, I think he would have caused them fits. I think Jamar Chase and T. Higgins would have played great against them. They were not the team I wanted to play. At all. There were 2 teams I did not. There are 2 teams in the AFC that scared me. One didn't make the playoffs, that's the Bengals. And one won Saturday, that's the Ravens. Okay. So now let's move on to Sunday, and let's put our spotlight on the NFC. Because 2 games at 1 o'clock had big ramifications on what was going to happen for the NFC playoff picture. And so first, let's talk about Panthers-Falcons. This was a great battle. The Falcons were on the outside looking in. The way for them to get in was going to be to win the division. They had to win, and they needed a Buccaneers loss, and the Falcons would be in. But if all the Bucs needed to do was win, they're in. And this game did not disappoint. It was a back and forth. It went to overtime. Carolina ended up winning 44-38. Despite the outcome for the Falcons, let's highlight 2 performances in this game. And one was Bryce Young. So he threw for 251 yards, 3 passing touchdowns, 2 rushing touchdowns. It was his first ever road win. He's never won a road game before. We were so ready to write this guy off. But since his benching and subsequent return, he's been so solid. I am so happy to have been wrong about him. He was drafted, in my opinion, even to this day, he was drafted too early. And obviously, he was the first overall pick. I do not think projects should be the number one overall pick. Especially when in that draft, CJ Stroud was available. And the evaluators of the Panthers decided that Bryce Young was going to be a better pick than CJ Stroud. In hindsight, they were wrong. Regardless of what Bryce Young does, they were wrong. They chose the wrong player. They made the wrong decision. If you're choosing 1-1, if you're choosing in the first pick in the draft, it needs to be a home run selection. Especially when you look back and you see, oh, CJ Stroud worked out in his first year. He was great. He led his team to the playoffs in his first year. You did something wrong. Yes, it's nice. It's a nice story, and it's good for you that it ends up working out in the end, hopefully. And we only have about a half a season sample size of play from Bryce Young to decide that. But you don't get a pass if your player didn't work out for a full season and a half and needed to be benched. You made the wrong pick. Don't hang your hat on anything. First, everyone was high on Bryce Young. Then everyone went the complete opposite direction. They were too low on him. He got benched. And hopefully now we will just be cautiously excited about what the future could hold for him. Okay. On the other side in this game was Michael Penix Jr. He threw for 312 yards, 2 passing touchdowns, a rushing touchdown. But man, this matchup was so nice for the future of the NFL. We got two quarterbacks who are young, they're promising, and in this, especially after the 2024 season, where the quarterback play was so subpar, it's been on a downward trajectory for several years now. Ever since the prominent names have left. Ever since Breeze retired. Ever since Brady retired. Ever since Peyton Manning retired. We have been on such a downward trajectory for quarterback play. There have been just a handful of good ones. And it was so nice to see two quarterbacks duke it out. Okay. But here was the thing about this game. Even come overtime, the Falcons' fate was decided, and that's because the Saints-Bucks game ended, and the Bucks beat the Saints in that one. And the Bucks were unable to get a lot of offense going in this one. Saints were up 19-13 going to the fourth quarter. The Bucks scored 2 touchdowns late to win 27-13. Baker was he threw for 221 yards, 2 touchdowns, but the Bucks end up clinching the NFC South. And not only that, they came into the day possibly not making the playoffs, but they get the 3 seed, and they will host a first-round playoff game. We move on to Bears-Packers. Bears won this one 24-22. Christian Watson, he was carted off the field with a knee injury in the second. Jordan Love, that was the bigger story. He left the game in the second with a hand injury on his throwing hand. That's obviously very problematic come playoff time. Malik Willis took over for him. He threw for 136 yards. Caleb Williams had a solid game for the Bears. He threw for 148 yards, 1 touchdown. Bears won on a buzzer-beater field goal. It was their first time in the last 11 games with the Packers that the Bears beat them. And the Packers end up with the 7th seed in the NFC. Okay. Jaguars at Colts. This is our first storyless game. 2 non-playoff teams, a nothing burger. Colts won this one 26-23. Jonathan Taylor had 177 rushing yards for the Colts, 1 touchdown. He was the only player to carry the ball over the line of scrimmage for the Colts. Joe Flacco, the question was, coming into this one, was this going to be his swan song? Was this his last game ever? He threw for 261 yards, 1 touchdown. Mac Jones had 225 passing yards for the Jaguars, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Okay. So then came this Bills-Patriots game. And this was a funny one. Because the Patriots came into the day with the first overall pick. So lose, it's yours. And Josh Allen, everybody knew he wasn't going to play the game. He took 1 snap, waved to the crowd, even though it was in Foxborough. He continued his start streak, It is now at 105 straight games. Then the Patriots pulled Jerod Mayo early. They want that number one overall pick. And it ended up being Joe Milton against Mitch Trubisky. But that being said, the Patriots win the game 23-16, and they lose the number one seed. Not only do they lose the number one seed, but they slid all the way to the number four pick. But that was not the story a half hour after the game ended. No. The story was that the Patriots announced that they fired Coach Jerod Mayo. So he was fired after one season. And the Patriots released this entire statement from Robert Kraft about letting go of their short-lived, tenured head coach. And so clearly their mind was made up going into this game, and maybe even before that. It stinks that they won this game, even though they knew they were going to lose. They were going to fire Jerod Mayo. Maybe fire him before the game and do a more intentional tank to make sure you get the one seed. If you think you have a quarterback in Jerod Mayo, which they probably do, right? Don't you want at least a top 3 pick? The 2 quarterbacks are going to go are Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward. Don't you want to be in those top 3 so you can have your pick of whoever's left of the top non-quarterback so you can draft Travis Hunter? It's not yours anymore unless you trade up for it. I just think that's ridiculous. Fire him before the game. Tank harder. Get who you want to fix the team. You clearly have a lot of holes. Now, in terms of the firing, I think that we live in an age where NFL coaches do not get enough of a chance. One season. On the other hand, though, you have Mike Vrabel available, and clearly there is mutual interest there. And so it seems to be that the Patriots got scared off by the fact that the Jets met with Vrabel last week. And so this was too much of a perfect situation for them to pass up. He was such a good coach for the Titans. He went 54-45 for them. And so whoever this next head coach is, whether it's Mike Vrabel or not, they will inherit Jerod Mayo as their quarterback. But there are so many other question marks to answer. They have a lot of cap space, $130 million in cap. But the Patriots are still searching for their first success since the Tom Brady era. And the question is this what they're missing? Is a new head coach what they're missing? And is that what's going to be what steers them in the right direction? Okay. Giants-Eagles. This game did not mean anything for the Eagles. It mattered for the Giants, though, in terms of their draft pick. So lose, and obviously it's better for them. Eagles win 20-13. So after the Giants couldn't tank last week against the Colts, they pull off the tank against the Eagles this week. They'll draft third. So depending on what the Browns do, or the teams ahead of them, and we'll get to those 2 teams that are ahead of them, the Titans and the Browns, depending on what they do, the Giants will possibly be the ones to select the first non-quarterback. Or they will draft a quarterback. A lot remains to be seen. Tanner McKee was actually pretty good for the Eagles. He threw for 269 yards, 2 passing touchdowns. Drew Lock was not great after his out-of-body experience last week. He threw for 138 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Okay, let's move on. Commanders, Cowboys. Commanders win. If the Commanders win, they get the 6th seed, and they did. They won 23-19. Jaden Daniels, he was pulled at halftime with leg soreness, but really just to rest. Marcus Mariota came into the game, didn't really do much, but the Commanders did enough to win, and they get the 6th seed. Okay. Texans at Titans. Coming into this week, Texans were locked into the 4th seed. The Titans, though, if they lost, they could get as high as the number 1 overall pick. Texans won 23-14. C.J. Stroud played the first drive of the game. He scored a touchdown, left the game. Davis Mills came in to replace him. Titans lose the game, and now they are on the board. They have the number 1 overall pick. So it's Titans 1, Browns 2, Giants 3, Patriots 4. The Giants coming into last week were set to pick number 1 overall. They lost. It was the Patriots. And now it is the Titans who will pick first. So what will they do? Will they draft Shedeur Sanders? Will they draft Cam Ward? Will they take somebody else? Maybe they'll take Travis Hunter and stick with Will Levis. Will they get another quarterback? Maybe sign Kirk Cousins. If it's me, draft Shedeur. We'll get into it, I'm sure, plenty over the next couple months. But draft Shedeur Sanders. He's a great player. You would be a fun team to watch. That's what Shedeur Sanders brings to you. But we'll get to that. We have plenty of time to discuss that. Okay. Niners at Cardinals, another game that didn't matter at all. Cardinals won 47-24. Kyler Murray threw for 242 yards, 4 touchdowns. Good for him, finishing on a nice note. We'll see what his offseason outlook looks like. Joshua Dobbs had a nice game for the Niners. He threw for 326 yards, 2 touchdowns. Let's just forget about those 2 picks he threw. Okay. Chiefs at Broncos. Broncos win, and they're in. This was the big game for the AFC now, and that was in the 4 o'clock window, the late window. So if they lose, the Dolphins or Bengals have a chance, but it literally did not matter. They never looked back. It was 38-0. Carson Wentz started for the Chiefs. He was literally horrible. Threw for 98 yards. Bo Nix, he was awesome. He threw for 321 yards, 4 touchdowns, 0 turnovers. Broncos were in, and now the Dolphins and Bengals were out. So the Dolphins, obviously, in their game against the Jets, they had to win for them to have any sort of chance. Jets won 32-20. Tyler Huntley started in place of Tua Tagovailoa, who's dealing with injury. He had 227 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 picks. On the other side, this was possibly the end of the Aaron Rodgers experience for the New York Jets. Nice ending for him. 274 yards, 4 touchdowns, and the Jets will pick 7th overall in the upcoming draft. Chargers at Raiders. So the Chargers had already clinched in Jim Harbaugh's first season as head coach. If the Chargers win, they're the 5 seed. If they lose, they're the 6 seed. Chargers took care of business. They won 34-20. Justin Herbert, he balled out, 346 yards, 2 touchdowns. Chargers end up with the 5 seed. And so now the playoff picture was set in the AFC. The Steelers end up with the 6 seed, and the Broncos had the 7 seed. Okay. Seahawks at Rams. Rams won 30-25. Jimmy Garoppolo started for the Rams. Played great, 334 yards, 2 touchdowns. So the Rams then ended up with the 4 seed. And by the way, this is a team I love to make a little run. We'll get into matchups and predictions later in the week. I love this team to make a little run. Stafford, he's been there before. He obviously has won a Super Bowl with them, and he's been there before. And the weapons that he has and how they're playing with Puka and Kupp, they're dangerous. The defense is dangerous. And I think in these kind of situations, kind of coming in, they won the division. But Sean McVay, I think this is a perfect situation for him. Not that pressure gets to him, but no pressure is on him. He has a very solid to great team in front of him. Let's see what kind of noise they can make in the playoffs. Okay. And then was the game we've all been waiting for all the marbles. Vikings-Lions. Winner gets the 1 seed. Loser has to go on the road in the first round and play as the 5 seed. And this was the game of the week. It was the game of the season for all the marbles. And what did we get? Sam Darnold was atrocious. Could not do anything in the red zone. He threw for 166 yards. He was 18 for 41 on pass attempts. And both teams honestly struggled in the first half. It was 10-6 going into the half. Jared Goff all in all played solid. He threw for 231 yards and a touchdown, but the story was Jahmyr Gibbs. 4 touchdowns, 3 rushing, 1 receiving. Boy, do they need him for the playoffs. Jared Goff, though, he needs to step up because it cannot just be Gibbs. Lions won 31-9. And so then the playoff matchups were set. Lions get the bye, and then Vikings get the 5 seed. Okay. And speaking of playoff matchups, we got the schedule. As Sunday Night Football was being played, we got the schedule. And so Saturday at 4:30, it's going to be the 5 seed Chargers at the 4 seed Texans. Then at 8 o'clock in the AFC, the 6 seed Steelers at the 3 seed Ravens. Then to start off Sunday's games, 1 o'clock is 7 seed Broncos at 2 seed Bills. At 4:30, the NFC matchups begin. 7 seed Packers at 2 seed Eagles. 8 o'clock is 6 seed Commanders at 3 seed Buccaneers. And finally, on Monday night, it'll be the 4 seed Rams hosting the 5 seed Vikings on Monday Night Football at 8 o'clock. We'll preview all these matchups later in the week. Okay, let's move on to the NBA. Boy, football was fun. Celtics at Thunder. We got a great matchup here on Sunday in the NBA through all this NFL action. So we had Celtics at Thunder. 1 seed in the West against 2 seed in the East. And this could, by the way, I feel pretty good. This could be a finals match. This could be a finals preview. That being said, Thunder's won 105-92. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander continues to roll. 33 points, 11 rebounds for the double-double. The Thunder extend their win streak to a franchise record 15 straight. And boy, this team could win the whole thing. You look at them play. This was the second huge statement win over the weekend. They beat the Knicks on Friday night. They continue to get tons of production from SGA. They play great defense. Great contributions deep into their roster. Aaron Wiggins had 15 points off the bench. 4 starters were in double digits. Jason Tatum led the way for the Celtics with 26 points. Hornets, Cavs. Cavs continue to roll. They win 115-104. Darius Garland, he had 25 for the Cavs, leading them. They moved to 31-4. They continue to prove me wrong, but still my gut says this is a team that is not built to win an NBA championship. We will see. They're still first in the East, so clearly they deserve the respect I'm not giving them. For the Hornets, LaMelo Ball led the way with 24 points. Pelicans, Wizards. Pelicans, baby! They won 110-98. After I talked up the Wizards the other day, they lay an egg against another horrible team. CJ McCollum had 25 for the Pelicans. Kyle Kuzma led the way for the Wizards with 28. Jazz Magic. Jazz won 105-92. Back-to-back wins in 2 nights for them. Bryce Sensabaugh, he had 27 for the Jazz off the bench. They had 3 starters and 3 bench players in double-digit points. Jet Howard led the Magic with 21 points off the bench. Magic remained 3 games back of the Knicks for the 3 seed in the East. Lakers, Rockets. Rockets won this one 119-115. Jalen Green scored 33 for the Rockets. Anthony Davis led the Lakers with 30 points. Every Lakers starter was in double digits in points, but that wasn't enough. Rockets still hold the 2 seed in the West, but 7 games back of the Thunder for the 1 seed. And finally, we had Kings, Warriors. Kings blow out the Warriors 129-99. Malik Monk had 26 points for the Kings and a double-double with 12 rebounds. All 5 starters for them were in double digits. The Kings are really creeping up. They're a game behind a playoff spot. They've won 4 straight since firing head coach Mike Brown. Okay, let's move on to the hockey. Rangers, Blackhawks. Rangers, baby! They won 6-2. Wow, they beat a horrible team that they lost to 2 weeks ago. Amazing. Louis Domingue started for this one for the Rangers, his first start of the year. Filipino had 2 goals for them in the win. Islanders, Bruins. Islanders beat the Bruins 5-4 in overtime. Bo Horvat scored in overtime, his second of the game. Islanders end their 3-game losing streak. Bruins having a tough go of it lately. They lost to the Rangers the other day, and now they lose to the Islanders. In overtime, Anders Lee, he had 2 goals for the Islanders. David Pastrnak, Pasta, he had 2 goals for the Bruins. Penguins, Hurricanes, another overtime game. Hurricanes won 4-3. Sebastian Aho scored the overtime winner. He had a goal and 2 assists. Seth Jarvis also had 3 goals. 3 points on 2 goals and an assist for the Hurricanes. Hurricanes move closer to the Devils for the second seed in the Met. They're just 1 point behind them. Flyers, Maple Leafs, and yet again another overtime game. Leafs won 3-2. Morgan Riley scored in overtime for the Leafs. Lightning at Ducks. Ducks won this one 4-1. Frank Vetrano just signed an extension with them. Had 2 goals for the Ducks, as well as an assist. John Gibson had 37 saves for them. Don't look now. They're 6-4 in their last 10. They're only 6 points behind a playoff spot. Look at those Ducks. Quack quack. Jacob Trouba, who, if I would have had a podcast and had this podcast when Jacob Trouba was still on the Rangers, maybe I'll just record in hindsight, blasting of Jacob Trouba. I'll put myself back in the shoes of where I was when he was still on the team. I'll record just me. I deserve it. I deserve to just explode on Jacob Trouba. Ovi watch, baby! Caps did not play yesterday. He scored, though, on Saturday. I had to bring it up. This is an Ovi podcast. He's 23 goals away from breaking Wayne Gretzky's record. They beat the Rangers in that game over on Saturday, 7-4. Okay. Let's finish this thing off. We just ran through hockey and basketball. Let us finish this thing off talking some baseball. Not much happened over the weekend. The Dodgers, though, as I previously mentioned at the top of the show, were making headlines in one and a half way. So on Friday, they announced they formally announced that they signed Teoscar Hernandez. But they also announced, it was also reported that they signed Hyesong Kim to a 3-year deal, guaranteed $12.5 million with an option for 2028-2029 that could increase the value of the deal to $22 million. So this guy Kim, he was one of the top players in the Korean League. Dodgers manager Dave Roberts said they've been scouting Kim ever since they played in Korea. They played an exhibition series in Korea last year, and I believe he actually had a great series. In 8 seasons in the KBO, he's batted .304 and has a .364 on base percentage. Obviously, this is a low-risk move for them. It's not a long contract. It's only 3 years. It's not a lot of money. They already have Mookie Betts pegged to play shortstop. Gavin Lux to play second base. So he's going to come in and he's going to be a utility guy for them. But ultimately, this is a great gamble. You just add a utility player. You add a guy with a very high ceiling. But the way your roster is constructed, you are able to be flexible if his floor is low. We've seen Gavin Lux struggle over the last couple of years. Mookie Betts is better fit in the outfield. And so what you have now is you have a guy whose ceiling is so high that if it works out with him, you can be a little more comfortable with your lineup. You could be a little more comfortable with your fielding structure, composition. But if the floor's low, you're not paying him a lot of money. You can afford for it to be a miss. And this is what did we let the Dodgers get away with here? How? How do we let them have such a safe bet? Literally nothing can go wrong here. There is no repercussions. It barely affects their payroll. It barely affects any sort of roster space. You have so much. You continue that flexibility. How did he only go for this little money? There wasn't another team that was willing to give him a little bit more and take a gamble on a utility guy like this? Put him at second base. There weren't any teams that needed a second baseman. Man, I feel like under our noses, the Dodgers just got away with another one. And they look so good heading into... Have we seen any team in sports rebound in free agency following a championship ever? Blake Snell. They bring back Teoscar Hernandez. They bring back Blake Trinan. Now Hyesong Kim. By the way, I just want to be clear, not to be confused with Hyesong Kim. He was on the Padres. He's also free agent. How are they getting away with this? Boy, the Dodgers' outlook for 2025 looks as good as it possibly could. Okay. And the next reason why they were sort of trending over the weekend was, let's head back to Sasaki Watch. Because Ken Rosenthal went on Fair Territory on Friday, and he spoke about Roki Sasaki. What he did was he solidified. He came out with confidence and said, look, those teams that got meetings with him, they're real contenders. That's the Dodgers, Padres, Mets, and Yankees, and Rangers. And Giants, excuse me. The piece that he added in, though, which I thought was interesting, was there are two teams who have been unable to, as he put it, get a seat at the table. And those two teams are the Red Sox and the Phillies. And so I think the thing we can take away here is the teams I mentioned that are in on him clearly should be viewed as having great pitching development and being destinations where players might want to go. And it's not to say the Phillies and Red Sox are not. But you have to wonder, what is the reason that these two teams, who are clearly trending in the right direction talent-wise, but what is the reason why they cannot get a seat at the table, as Ken Rosenthal put it? I cannot stress how valuable Roki Sasaki is. For how valuable Hyesong Kim is in terms of low risk, not a lot of money, not a big commitment, Roki Sasaki is 100 times that. He is less expensive. I take that back. He's probably not less expensive. But the talent of Roki Sasaki is so, the ceiling of Roki Sasaki is so much higher than maybe any pitcher we've seen in a long time, any young pitcher we've seen in a long time, relative to the amount of money, which is probably a little bit more average annual value than Hyesong Kim got. It is absurd what this guy can add to a team. I cannot stress enough why there are so many teams involved and why so many teams want him. Okay, that's it. I'm sure when I record tomorrow, there will be head coaches fired to talk about. We'll have basketball games to cover. We'll have hockey games to cover. This was the Early Game Podcast. We will see you tomorrow.